This nibble originally aired on RSBANDB Update, episode 791, Return of the Spec. Enjoy. First one is from Mr. Ling. What would be the best in-slot weapons for each style to have in the new amulet? And what would be a budget option for those who can't afford the expensive stuff? And we'll turn this over to you, David. Best in slot for each style.
Yeah, so I think we already talked a lot about both Magic and Melee. Fortunately, the best in slot for both Magic and Melee are pretty cheap. So Dragon, Weapon of Choice, or Gothic Staff. For ranged, however, a little more expensive, I would say best in slot probably Eldritch Crossbow, because you can use the Eldritch Crossbow and utilize that with other weapons. So like you could use your Eldritch Crossbow spec and then SGB spec or something like that. Budget option though is Magic Longbows are actually really solid. In certain cases, Dark Bows are really good. There's definitely going to be some really cool record-setting videos with the Dark Bow special because that thing hits like a truck, but it's a lot of adren. Yeah, so I would say Gothic Staff for Magic, Dragon Weapon of Choice, either Dragon Dagger, Dragon Longsword, or Dragon Mace. My preference is Dragon Dagger, but I think you can make good arguments for the other two. And Magic Longbow. And a Magic Longbow is, of course, like close to nothing. So yeah, I would say that would be your best bet for each of the three styles.
Yeah, and you know the Magic one is also, it's really interesting because the way you put this out, your best in slot for Magic and Melee is the same as the budget option.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and for range, the Eldritch Crossbow thing is so insignificant that even people with just like huge amounts of money, I just think it's silly. I think a Magic Longbow is a perfectly good selection, and I think those are what, 2K at most, 1K,
Yeah,
5 GP. Basically free, right? So yeah, I think in this case, high upfront cost, but then incredibly cheap upkeep.
and you know, here I was thinking we'd be seeing things like Azaros Godsword or Saren Godbow or Stadius Warhammer.
I was wrong about that.
No, well, Stadius Warhammer is a different case. That's a money saver because they're like 400 mil, and having a second amulet with your Stadius Warhammer is actually a cost saver because
Right.
you use your Stadius Warhammer like normal. When it gets to 2-3% charge, pop it into one of the amulets, and now you have infinite special attacks for life. I didn't mention this earlier, Shane. I'm sorry about that. But something interesting about this is it makes it so instead of having to choose whether it's worth the cost to use a Stadius Warhammer, now you ought to use it constantly all the time because it's essentially free after you've bought one of them, because you just put it in well, it's not free because it costs the price of an amulet.
Yeah.
But nowadays, once you buy your second amulet for your hammer, you could just literally hammer spec everywhere all the time, constantly. I'm going to be hammer specking Telos at 100 in rage, which I would never have done before because it costs so much. Or like at Yakamaru, I'm going to be hammer specking constantly because why wouldn't I? It's now no longer a cost, which is another form of power creep in of itself.
Neat. What is the Eldritch special attack anyways? I'm not familiar with that one.
It changes Soul Split from healing you to increasing damage, but it only works while you're wielding it. So you can now put the Eldritch Crossbow in the amulet, use the spec, and not have to be using the Eldritch Crossbow. So you could either be using Blightbound Crossbows or the Saren Godbow effect.
Nice. All right.
Yeah. I wouldn't worry about that too much. If you got
Yeah. And you know what's really interesting about this, and I think this will be the last thing I say on this episode. I remember when EOC came out, people were always saying, "Oh, our special attacks that we had before, kind of useless."
And they were, and they keep it seems like every 6 months since the EOC
Say again, you broke up there.
And I'm just agreeing with you that was the case, and now they're back. Dragon weapons are back. I mean, that's kind of nostalgic.
Yeah,
it was
it is.
cool being able to use the dragon dagger again. I found that to be really fun.
I'm telling you, it's weapon diversity. Right? The simplest solution.
Yeah. I mean, it is.
There's a choice to the weapon
in a way,
that you're going to use now.
It is in a way, and there really truly are advantages and disadvantages to different choices among the different dragon special attacks, and I think that's really fun, and a really fun addition to PvM. I really like it.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Ling, for that question. I'm glad we got to summarize which weapons we'd wind up using there for that. You can watch full episodes of RSBANDB Update right here on this YouTube channel. You can also listen to audio versions of RSBANDB Update at update.rsbnb.com, and feel free to subscribe to our show and any number of podcast listeners out there at update.rsbnb.com/subscribe.